We're starting to see the next phase of companies, the next generation of companies coming in on the infrastructure layer, coming in on new modalities, the model layer, and coming in on the application layer. And those companies are moving from experimental budgets to real budgets, to permanent budgets. And that's starting to be really, really interesting. So welcome again. I'm Shay, the managing partner at Greenfield Partners. Greenfield Partners is an early growth investment fund, investing in groundbreaking companies that are actually opening new markets and are going to change whole industries. We put checks of 25 to 50. We manage about $1 billion in AUM, and we're very excited to be actually doing what we do in this day and age because we are seeing just phenomenal and unbelievable companies out there. It took us about 6 months to think about and curate the list that we're unveiled this morning. We looked at 8,000 companies that are shaking and making and creating the next generation of AI companies, and we came up with the list of 60. So first of all, I want to say that the companies that were there that didn't cut it into the list, all of them were very close and did amazing jobs, so I want to recognize them as well. But the companies that we see here are companies that are truly exciting, and again, they're sitting across 3 layers, the infrastructure layer, the modality layer, and the list layer. And with that, I want to invite our panelists, Renen Hallak, the co-founder and CEO of Vast Data, Brandon Young, the co-founder of Cartesia, and Melisa, Tokmak, the CEO of Netic. They'll all join me here, each one of them actually representing a different layer, and I think we'll have a wonderful chat together. Thank you guys for joining me. This is really exciting. Really appreciate you coming in and sharing your stories with the audience. I'm going to start with the first question, but please, as you answer that question, give us also a snippet on your company and what you do, so it will actually, people will understand the context of the answer. And my first question is around moat. It's interesting how generating revenue is actually going with a different trajectory than what we used to in the age of AI, but at the same time, we see competition that is more intense. And I want to ask each one of you, how do you deal with the moat? How do you create protection? How do you actually create a lasting advantage in your markets as you shape up your company to be a category leader in a very big company in the years to come?
Yeah, I'm Renen from Vast Data. We build a data platform, the software infrastructure layer for AI. And I think the way to tackle that is to choose your customers and listen to your customers. From the very early days of Vast, we chose to partner with the most innovative companies, the ones that were on the bleeding edge of AI, and then we just listened. We asked a lot of questions. What do you need from us? How can we help make you more successful? And then build towards what they ask you. And so long as you do that, you're always going to be well differentiated from everybody else.
I'm going to go back and allow you to explain more about Vast Data, but Melisa.
Yeah, I'm Melisa. I'm the founder of Netic. We are an AI revenue engine for large essential services industries. So I'm the application layer here. I work with very large companies that are maybe, not super used to AI. But I'm actually going to play off of what Renen said. For us we focus on the customer. This industry today is mainly focusing on benchmarks. I think the #1 thing about competitive advantage to focus on the customer, and according to what layer of the stack you play in, that's going to look a little bit different. I'm sure for Vast it was different. For us, it's about how do you deploy in enterprises? How do you make a non-deterministic system really work well in a real company that has to serve the real world? And what does that look like, right? So we focused on a lot of the reliability and eval and actually deploying that is based on ROI to build that competitive advantage.
Wonderful. Brandon?
Hey, I'm Brandon. I'm a co-founder at Cartesia. We're an AI research company that pioneers a lot of architecture research and is sort of pushing the frontier in real-time voice models to power things like voice agents in like a variety of industries, as well as gaming and customer support and assistance and other real-time voice interactions. For us, we live at the model layer. We provide models for text-to-speech, ASR, and then more recently, end-to-end voice agent infrastructure. And I think at this layer, like, mostly the differentiation does come from listening to your customers, but actually, like, at the end of the day, we offer technology and people buy the model that performs the best. And I think one nice thing about sort of being at the model layer is that what people want is not super hard to sort of intuit, right? For voice models, they want them to be accurate, they want them to be reliable, they want them to be natural. They want their speech understanding systems to accurately transcribe every single thing in every single possible environment, right? I think the goal is relatively clear, but I think the technology is difficult, both from a model architecture, data, evals, and know-how perspective. And I think that's a lot of where, and also actually serving them robustly at scale. And so I think for us, a lot of it is like, how do we build the best technology in the world and make this seamless for our customers?
Interesting.
I'm actually going to give an example there with Brandon. So in his layer, I'm his customer, right? Or companies like me. So there, the competitive advantage also could start with making friends. Brandon and I are friends from Stanford. And when he says, listen to the customer, it means literally I Slack him all the time, and I call him all the time. I ask questions, and that's very important. They have to listen to that or even tell me no at times. And I have to understand that for my customers, because I need to know what he's investing in, so that I can complete the stack on the areas that I have to invest in, because it's not coming from him, right? So sometimes, actually, my customer depends on me being a customer and really working with the best of the best, really focus on that feedback, but being reasonable as well, right?
That's wonderful. I want to take off for a second for the dreaming phase, to actually for all of us to dream a little bit before we go back to ROI and go to market and customer needs, etc. But as we saw the model layer actually starting with text and then key modalities evolving to voice and to video, what do you think is the next phase? What's shaping up for us? Help us dream, because you are actually connecting the technology to what's feasible. Help us dream for 5, 10 years before we actually go back to ROI and customers, etc. Renen, maybe you can start.
Sure. So as this evolves very, very quickly, we see that information that computers did not know what to do with even a year ago or 2 years ago, they're now starting to understand, whether it's pictures or video or sound or genomes, natural language, things that were in the domain of humans only before. Now computers can start to do things with. And when I say start to do things with, we're seeing all of these agents now starting to help us with tasks that we already know how to do. But over time, these agents are going to not just be based on the latest model that came from an OpenAI or a XAI, but they're going to learn and they're going to adapt. And based on their experience, they will have their own model of the universe as they fine-tune based on things that they see, that they hear. It's not just agents in computers, it's in robots, in drones, in cars. And so they actually are in the physical world, experiencing the physical universe in ways that only we could before. And I think once they start combining those with interaction, both with us and with other agents, with other robots, then interesting things will happen. They'll start to come up with their own ideas and be able to solve problems that maybe we don't know how to solve.
Melisa?
I think Renen was great keeping it at the data layer. I'll maybe bring us back tiny bit more, but still imagine the future. I am at the layer talking to the customers directly, humans directly. So I think while agents and solutions, startups, models doing that, for us what's important is being fluid between modalities. So what I imagine, right, it's exactly like meeting humans, meeting customers where they are. It's never voice, it's never text, it's never some clicks and somewhere. It's actually all of the above. The key thing is about how do we move from one modality to another as it goes with flow, without even noticing that it's moving, right? When I live my life, it's like that. I am speaking right now, and when you talk to me, I understand. But at the same time, I'm seeing, and there's like an image there. I might be doing something on my phone or texting. Everything in my life is complete together, flowing one way to another. So for our side and our customers and our startup, it's really looking at a future that's multimodal effortlessly.
Yeah, I mean, I think for us, we are an AI research company. There's sort of like three things that we think are like missing from today's AI, and I think it actually echoes a lot of what Melisa and Renen were talking about. I think one is like native multimodality, right? It should be able to, in real time, understand the environment and the full context of your situation, and also sort of reply and generate in whatever the sort of modality is that's the most natural, whether that's text or audio or video, or actually one day even interacting in the real world. I think the other one is like statefulness. So I think right now when you talk to an AI or you build a voice agent, like the AI itself is not stateful, but sort of people do various types of like routing and engineering to sort of give it context from previous customer interactions. Like real AI should have state, and it should grow and improve over time the same way real people do. Like if you were to hire an employee, they would get better at their job over time. I think the last one, which is very related to that, is like long context and memory. So how do you sort of like actually like recall these experiences over a long period of time and like keep the parts of it that are relevant to sort of the task at hand, and then also actually like fuzzily discard the parts that are not relevant. And that's been a subject of a lot of our research into like state space models over the course of our PhDs and beyond. And I think like really like sort of what that summarizes as is like we want to build this like multimodal reasoning core, which might not necessarily be able to solve IMO problems the same way that I can't solve any IMO problems. I've tried. But like really, it's like real time, it's efficient. I remember my past experiences, I get better over time, and I think as a result, I can sort of be, to some extent, economically productive even without being able to solve IMO problems.
Amazing. I want to shift us back into reality. Well, I know that you actually talked about reality. It's actually the future is actually connecting to us right now as we shape it. Oh, your answers were so rooted in what you're seeing right now. It's not that you're dreaming without strong roots, but I do want to talk about adoption and ROI and what makes customers actually make decision about real budget, not experimental budget, rather permanent budgets, and go with you, and why did you do that? And in a way, what are you seeing in the market? I know that the first wave was, I need to implement AI. We need to show some value to our management that wants us to see something with AI. But when you actually talk about real budgets and permanent ones, it has to be connected to ROI. So how do you do that? What do you do in your companies in order to achieve that adoption and very clear line of sight to ROI?
So in our case, the biggest AI companies in the world are using the platform, and so they're seeing ROI from the first day, whether they're building a new model or they're inferring on older models, whether it's an AI cloud or an enterprise. In the last 12 to 18 months, we're seeing a lot of enterprise adoption, and they are definitely moving from the experimental phase into production, into a place where it needs to be secure, where it needs to be real time, where it needs to be simple for everybody to operate. And each enterprise is different. If it's retail, they want their physical stores to be more like internet shopping was 10 years ago. If it's banking, they have their own use cases. But they're all finding those use cases. And I think they took the last couple of years to understand where they can make money, and now they're deploying at scale with a lot of the very defined sense of urgency.
Interesting. Melisa?
I like this question because I get this question a lot as someone working with large industries that maybe Silicon Valley deems as, more Luddites and not open to adoption. But I will say, I think before building Netic, I have worked with a lot of tech companies too at Scale AI and in the industry. These industries are one of the best in adopting technology if you can prove ROI. First of all, they have to serve the real world. They have to serve their communities, real people. They have to employ real people. They are EBITDA businesses. There's also not tons of VCs going around and actually giving a lot of money like they give to us and around. So it's very important. Everything is ROI focused. So how do we do that? I think the last era of startups and technology is really focused on cost savings. Today, we're at a place with the advancements we're doing with AI is that now it's not only about cost savings, it's now about revenue generation. So that's what we focus on. Sure, you should be getting a lot of cost savings, and if anything, we have to be fast in proving that to you, right? But then turn it very quickly, utilizing that data and really building on top of it. Do we get you new business? How do we prove that? So, and basically, it's all about ROI, but it doesn't come, I always say to our customers too, we select our customers very carefully. AI is not a magic potion, certainly not in enterprise. You know, sometimes people expect that like, oh, is this self-serve and just like magic potion solve all my problems? Definitely not. You have to set real expectations on what's going to happen, when, what kind of results to look for, and also choose your partners based on that. So we try to focus on that from the beginning about how do we get you to ROI maybe within hours of signing a contract with us, having right expectations and moving from there, from cost savings to revenue generation, that you can look at an actual number in a balance sheet. So when you focus on that, you know, we are lucky to work with incredibly innovative partners in these industries that serve the real world. Even actually, you know, a lot of the HVAC companies are one of the biggest innovators in this area because all of you in your homes have to have that. Maybe not in San Francisco, but across North America. So yeah, we don't see issues as long as we can deliver on ROI. So the on us is on us.
I mean, hard to follow Melisa for this one. I feel like having known her for a while, I don't think anyone cares more about ROI than Melisa does. But I think we're really lucky to work with people like her to sort of actually bring ROI to businesses. I think to me, actually, it's not a matter of like if ROI is being delivered. Like I think in voice AI in particular, but I think also for LMs, like there are places where it's being used to create new technology that's more experimental, but it's actually like automating and creating real dollar value that can be measured, and a lot of our customers are doing it, right? I think in Melissa's case, it might be something like automating inbound calls for businesses. Like each one of those calls that are taken is an appointment scheduled, and that's real dollar value that can be attributed to the business, right? There's other use cases, outbound sales, customer support, things like that. A lot of our customers are seeing really real use cases and really real dollar amounts being saved. And I think like the real question is like how much, not if, especially in voice, I think. And then, you know, I think for us, like, you know, how we think about ROI is like, we do work with some large customers directly who, who have really large products that are like actually very enabled by voice, like ServiceNow and others. And I think that's one vehicle to which I think we can sort of bring impact. The other one is like, for us, like proving ROI is actually not very difficult because people can sort of try switching to our model. They can use our models in production. And in the cases where they're already driving ROI for customers, they typically can see measurable returns in performance. And so, you know, I think for us, like we've been sort of lucky to work with like great partners to sort of like drive real ROI to businesses.
That's great. You know, 10 years ago, we used to say that if you have a good idea and you found a market and budgets that are available for your idea, there'll probably be 4 or 5 competitors right away, right from the get-go. Probably someone from San Francisco, maybe 2, Austin, New York, London, or Tel Aviv will go after the same market. And you have to have what we define, not just product market fit, but product market sales fit. The ability to sell efficiently, or in other words, make sure that the cost of growth is cheaper than the cost of capital. In the days of AI, instead of 4 or 5 competitors, you probably see 10 or 15 competitors coming in if you actually hit something that a vein that is interesting. My question to you guys is, how is your go-to-market different, if at all, in this day and age? Are you thinking differently? Are you thinking, you know what, I have to spend at all cost in order to achieve a customer because otherwise they'll take it from us and later on we'll actually get to a balanced place? Or are you thinking about growth in a more measured way? What's going on through your mind? Maybe there's dynamics with the investors. How are you thinking about growth right now?
We focus on the most data-intensive organizations on the planet, and I think that helps us with everything that you said. It helps us, on the one hand, grow very quickly, because once we're in, there's a lot of growth that comes right after that. On the other hand, it helps us stay very efficient in the way that we're building the company, because we don't need as many salespeople or support people per customer as we otherwise would have for the same amount of revenue. And so using those very data-intensive organizations, in some cases as our end users, in some cases as our channel. For example, a lot of these new AI clouds have some of these other companies as their customers. And so leveraging that in order to stay very, very efficient and maintain the levels of growth that are required at this age.
Wow, that's a big question. So I didn't even know where to start, but I feel very passionate about this question. So I will say, right before us, there was a session, and I couldn't see who was saying it, but I was just listening when they were miking me up, and he was talking about, go on with the CEO sales as much as you can. There's a reason for that, not because like we all have ego complex that we'd like to do everything, but it's because you have to hear every little thing to be able to build an organization that can take it over from you. Why do I talk about this? Because in my industries, actually, they're really inundated constantly with each area that I might be doing in a compounding way, with a ton of different point solutions, or even doing it manually with humans, and self-serve this, self-serve there, and a lot of vaporware, they're getting inundated by it, right? So my go-to-market strategy was actually being myself. I am extremely blunt as a Turkish lady, and I almost start literally, like when I talk with my customers, there were two aspects of it. One, I don't really care what others are doing with point solutions. I embedded myself to these companies before starting the company, and their need was a compounding engine that does the inbound and outbound, not do one thing and do it really well and go explosive growth. That was not the need. It was harder the way that I went. It was very hard, but that was the need, right? And once you know that, you have to go after it. And then in the market, I also went for, hey, I'm gonna first talk to you about what's not going to work and what's to expect. And everything I said, we delivered. So the combination of that for us did the go-to-market to be able to get to this. I guess after this, we'll see if we can grow that organization and go way beyond a lot of the CEO-focused and small team-focused teams.
Yeah, I mean, I would just repeat what Melisa said. Like, I think I think having competitors is a good thing. It's a sign that there's real value and a real market being delivered. I think that's very true. Like, I think if nobody else cares, either you're a genius, which is great, but most likely actually nobody cares, and so, So I think in some ways it's a blessing to be able to have competition, because at least you can feel like you're building something that you know the world wants, and the question is whether or not you can build the best and most differentiated product in that space. Definitely much better than trying to find a space, I think, where you don't know if people care. I would say, like, in terms of like go-to-market today for AI, I think like. To Melissa's point, I think authenticity is what people are seeking, given sort of the giant proliferation of both like AI slop and AI companies in general. Like, people want to hear from founders. Like, I think the two channels that really work today are like people want to hear from founders. They want to hear founders be authentic. They want to see companies be on social media and engaging with their customers. Like, I think a lot of sort of like the traditional like sort of outbound sales, like paid marketing playbooks, I think like they still work to some degree, but that's not the way like a lot of these AI companies and models are getting explosive growth, right? And I would say the second part of this in terms of like converting customers is like everyone wants to see a demo now. Like, there was a world before where you can make a nice slide deck and then be like, hey, like can we have a meeting? Let me walk you through the slide deck, and then I'll like cook up the SaaS thing in like 6 months while we get the next meeting scheduled, and then we'll get that booked. Like, today everyone wants to see a demo. Big deals sort of come and go based on whether or not you can deliver. an experience that people like from the get-go. And then, of course, like whether or not you can retain those customers depends on whether or not you can deliver sort of like long-term value to sort of like Shai's original point. But people want to see stuff that works. Like you can't sell anything today if you don't have a demo that works.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Brendan. I'm going to point the last question to you, Renen, just because of time. You've been in it for 10 years now, almost, and you booked, you can say how much you booked, but your revenue numbers are obviously astonishing. But with that, and maybe realization of the real world, what do you think are the biggest hurdles to adoption of AI? What do you see that is still stopping us from actually utilizing the power of AI right now? And I'm sorry that I have to limit you to a short answer of 2 minutes, but interesting to hear from your perspective.
Yeah, I think the technology has advanced extremely quickly, but it hasn't proliferated yet in the way that we need it to. It's starting, but most organizations don't have 100 PhDs on staff to get this to work. And so they need to make it simple. They need us to make it secure. They need us to make it real time. They need all of the things that make it easy for them to say, yes, we're going to adopt this. And many of these industries are regulated industries. They have compliance to think of. They want somebody else to build it to a level where they don't need to think anymore and they can just deploy without worrying. And so I think that's the biggest hurdle that the rest of the world, not the AI natives, but everybody else is facing today. And for that, we need an operating system. If you look back in time, it was always hardware technologies that made new things possible, but then it was always a software infrastructure layer on top that made it widespread. If we're talking the PC revolution, it was Windows. If we're talking mobile, it was iOS. And these companies tend to attract also the most value over time because they are the ones that democratize these new technologies. I think we're right at that point with AI, where 6 months ago you needed a PhD in computer science to know what you were doing. 6 months from now, everybody or almost everybody should be able to do it themselves. And that's a big part of what we're trying to enable.
Amazing. Thank you for that. I want to thank, first of all, the panelists. Your insight and actually seeing it from the application layer, touching the customers, touching the real world, enabling the application layer, and then enabling us all to actually put the data on and work with it. It's actually an amazing experience. We had a tremendous experience over the last few months to actually look at 8,000 companies and select those 60 and talk to all those companies, see amazing group of founders working to change the world as we know it. I think all of us will be very busy for the next 20 years in doing what Renen just suggested, in actually making it easy for the real economy to use the power of AI. Thank you for listening to us, and thank you for being part of that journey. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.